Are you ready for football? Welcome to the NFL Pregame Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Championship Sunday. Conference Championship Sunday, aka Championship Sunday. When we get to the big dog, that will be Super Bowl Sunday, just so we're clear. But it's Championship Sunday. We're now down to 4 teams, just 4, that have an opportunity to be the champion of the NFL for the 2024 season. So before we jump ahead and talk about that, we got to talk about how we got from the Elite 8 to the Final 4. Slide a little college basketball reference in there. But even before that, beside me today, I got my man TJ. TJ, what's going on?
Hey, man, just excited. Steelers aren't in it, but hey, there's still a lot of good football, and from the AFC side, go Bills.
You know how it goes, man. Every few years, your team's in. Then every few years they're out. If you're not the Chieferese, the rest of us have to cycle. You know, we don't get a preferential referee treatment whenever we need it in the course of the game. You know what? This is a complete digression, but I have to say this. I have been saying since we began the show, I've been saying for years. I've been saying since before we played the Chieferese in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. If you play the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs or in a pivotal regular season game or the playoffs, there's one thing that happens all the time. The Farees half comes alive and helps them. You have to be able to beat them and the referees. And the only way you do that is you put points up every time. If you allow that game to be close late, you're going to lose. Period. It doesn't matter what other team you are. We saw a good bit of that. We'll talk about that when we get to the game. I just had to throw it out there, TJ, because it's been burning within me all week.
Let the hate flow.
Yes, sir. I hate them like you hate Kenny. Actually, I hate them more than you hate Kenny Pickett. And we know how much you hate Kenny Pickett.
That's a lot.
A whole lot, sir. I actually did a show yesterday with some Chiefs fans, and I made sure to let them know how I feel about the Chieferese and how they've been winning. And I made them acknowledge that they began help. That was a slight win for me. Still hate them just the same, though. But guys, we're going to get into this. Wherever you're checking us out, I appreciate you checking us out. But we're going to go ahead and slide into what's going on with the show. We're going to start with those games that I was just talking about that were played last week. There were 4 of them. Got to discuss them. So, we'll start in chronological order from the time that the game. No, you know what? We're not even going to do that. We're going to do them in the order that we want to. We're going to start last first. I would say the best game of the day was the Ravens and the Bills. I would say Sunday was better than Saturday as far as tightness of the game and trying to figure out who's going to win until the very end. So the Sunday night game we'll start with, actually. We had the Buffalo Bills triumph over the Baltimore Ravens. Said this other places, TJ. This is all I'm going to say, and I'll let you have it after this. Mark Andrews is the reason the Baltimore Ravens lost this game. I know we talk about all these other plays and other things that happened. Bateman dropped the ball. Some other things happened. Lamar threw some picks, whatever, turnovers. But at the end of the game, with an opportunity to put the game away, The drive before the last drive for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson drops back, hits a dime to Mark Andrews, who catches the ball, runs to the field, doesn't protect it. It gets punched out. He stands there and looks like, oh, the ball got punched out. What happened? Buffalo gets it back. If I remember correctly, they go down and get a field goal, which gives them the lead. Well, more of a lead where the Ravens had to score a touchdown. And I could be wrong, TJ. There's a lot of football, so maybe I'm mixing some games, but that's what I remember. So then the Ravens get the ball back. They get down the field. They scored a touchdown, but they have to make the 2-point conversion as well because it just gave up the field goal for the to tie the game. So they go for the 2-point. Throws the ball to Mark Andrews. Bunny throw. Hits Mark Andrews in the chest. Hits his hands. Hits the rim. Ravens lose 25-27 in a heartbreaker. And the ironic part about it is, even though Mark Andrews was the reason they lost. I mean, I'm not saying other factors didn't play a part into it, but at the pivotal moment, 2 very poor plays from Mark Andrews were the reason why the Ravens are not advancing, or at least didn't have a chance to go to overtime. So Mark Andrews is a guy that's been so reliable for them. It's not like a hate thing against him, but to me, he was the reason. But shout out to Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. They did their thing. They capitalized when the opportunities were there, and they got a win. Your thoughts, sir?
I mean, let me start off by saying, obviously, I'm a Steelers fan, so in between the lines, I hate the Ravens with a passion. They're the hated division rival. But in reality, when you take a step back and look, I feel bad for Lamar Jackson, because at the end of the day, he's the quarterback. It's going to fall on him. Him and the head coach, quarterback, head coach always get most of the blame. Very few accolades. Lamar Jackson, he had a great game. So did Josh Allen. It was really kind of it was a great matchup to see 2 quarterbacks who control the offense do that in the biggest game of the season at that point. But you got to feel bad for Lamar Jackson because he did so much stuff to help his team. They should be at least have had an opportunity to go into overtime. And I'm sure, even though it's not supposed to, voters are going to look back and say, well, maybe he's not the MVP since this happened and that happened. Like you said, it wasn't Mark Andrews 100%, but key moments, I'll say for the most part, routine plays that he makes 9 times out of 10, 19 times out of 20, those were unfortunately the ones he didn't make. I feel bad. Supposedly he's gotten a lot of threats and everything else. At the end of the day, listen, you can be mad, but it's a game. It's a football game, and I'm sure the man already felt bad enough. You didn't need to rub it in, too. But, kudos to the Bills. They pulled it off. They get that, that coveted rematch against Kansas City. And, in my opinion, this year is the best year to beat them just because of how lackluster Kansas City-wise their offense has been in terms of putting points on the board on a regular basis.
I dig it, man. So the part where I think it's fair to judge Lamar is this is a continual thing. This is a habitual thing with this team. It's like they always find a way to choke in the big games. And I can't say you can blame that completely on the quarterback, but at the same time, you've been the quarterback all these times where you've had these good regular seasons, not to rub salt in the room. You come back, you get the divisional win from the Steelers. You both still make the playoffs, but then you get in the playoffs, you win your first game, you get to the second round, and you choke. So it's kind of like, if you're a fan of Lamar Jackson, you know what's coming, and you're like, of course it's going to be all Lamar's fault in the media, right? Definitely not all his fault, but he's not blameless either because the turnovers did help put them in a situation where they needed that last drive to have the opportunity. It would be nice to see them actually come out one of these years and just really click and hit on all cylinders in the playoffs. And we have not seen that from this team for 3 consecutive games. Not even, I won't say 4, 3. So hopefully there will come a point, TJ, where we just see them play their best. And whether they win or lose, I just at least want to see them play their best in the playoffs, because it does start to feel like organizationally when this team gets to the playoffs, they just become a choke fest. And it's disappointing to see how much talent they had. You brought in Derrick Henry. He's second best running back in the league this year. Some may argue the best, and apples and oranges right there. But man, it's just tough to see them have this happen again. And the whole narrative is going to be, you paid Lamar all this money, you did this, you did that, and you're still getting the same from Lamar. And I don't think you're getting the same from Lamar. I think that's a bad take to say, but I do think that a couple of plays are hurting them so much that it's causing them to lose games that they should probably win. And it's consistent. That's one to add that in. I don't know if you have any further thoughts on the Ravens of this game. I know you don't want to talk about them too much. Divisional rival really cares too much. I get it. Yeah. Want to have the floor out there in case you want to use it.
Hey, I wanted the Bills to win, and they won, so hey, I'm happy. Not just to be a Ravens hater, though. I do want Josh Allen to do good and win one, especially with all the shade Diggs throws at him. I would love to see him win one without him,
That's a good point. And we will talk more about Josh Allen and them moving forward here momentarily. So we'll go to the other AFC game. We'll do the bookend games first. So we had the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Houston Texans. Chiefs won 23-14. Bad calls abounded. Just talked about a little foreshadowing. This is the Chiefs. When you have them play, you start to get just these plays where you're like, how is that even a penalty? I saw two guys hit each other, and then they called a roughing the pass on Patrick Mahomes. And it's just to the point where it's like, bro, we know you're going to do it now. Everybody's getting sick of it. I've been sick of it for over 3 years. Everybody else is starting to catch up and get like me finally. But I've been telling y'all, they're getting things that they shouldn't get, and it's aggravating because to me, it's to a point of it's not making the games fun anymore. Right? Because anybody can win the game, but when you've got the Chieferies and then you've got anybody else, it's hard to beat the Chiefs and the referee. And again, it's not every play, but what happens in pivotal situations, games close at the end of the game, if they're up or down, it's under 7 points or under 10 points. Those plays are definitely going against whoever's playing the Chieferies. And if that causes you to lose, the NFL doesn't care. Because nothing's happening about it. They're allowing it to happen. And that to me is the main part that's frustrating, is that you're allowing these things to happen and you know that they're happening. So, Houston was outgunned anyway, without their top two receivers. They played a good game, I felt like, under the circumstances, but I didn't feel like they really had an opportunity to win against Kansas City. They're not at that point yet, especially, again, with their other players, their other five people, the refs. Your thoughts, CJ?
I thought it was just a disastrous game for Houston. It seemed like, calls aside, they just couldn't get out of their own way.
Right.
Ryan's on the sideline. You can just see it on his face over and over again. Every time they pan to him, it was just like, again, not again. Come on. It seemed like everything was tilted against Houston, from the start, really. But one thing that did surprise me, though, was even with all the turnovers and mistakes that Houston imposed on themselves legitimately, Kansas City never really took, I'll say, full control or total ownership of the game.
Right.
Like you would expect a championship team to do, like this Kansas City Chiefs team would have done the last couple of years in games like that. So to me, it was a win for Kansas City, obviously, and the questionable calls at the end, specifically I believe two there were that really were like, what are you doing? But even with that aside, the Chiefs are very vulnerable right now. That's all last week showed me, was even with all that stuff just snowballing against Houston, Kansas City was just able to scrape by. And so I'll be interested to see how they do today against the Buffalo Bills, because the Bills, just like earlier in the regular season meeting, they proved they can come out and smack you. So to me, it just proved that, if nothing else, like you said, Houston close but not quite there yet, and Kansas City definitely vulnerable in today's game against Buffalo.
I dig it, man. I dig it. I talk a lot about that, but again, the way that you combat that is you go out and you do one really wild, quote unquote, wild thing. Very simple. Score every time. More touchdowns and field goals, but score every time. You have to get a lead enough to where it's like, well, even if we help them, it's going to be too outrageous. That's the only way I feel like you can beat this team. Because something's gonna happen. Some calls are gonna go for them. You just gotta outplay them. You gotta completely outplay them, and it's doable. Just gotta make it happen.
Basically,
Definitely
have to try
doable.
and boat race them like Washington did against Detroit.
Yes, sir. Motorboat them, boat race them, all those things. You got to really make it difficult, and I think that that's something that a lot of people haven't been able to do, because they do kind of lull you to sleep a little bit. I feel like when you're playing, they're not playing as good, so you're like, oh, we got some time. They're not playing like they should, and you get a little relaxed, and then, they hit you with what they do. And I'm not knocking the team, saying that they can't play or they're not good. I'm just saying they are getting extra help. And honestly, I don't think they really need it, and it taints something that they really don't need to happen. But it is what it is. So we will move on. So the other Saturday game, the Commanders and the Lions, Washington marched into Detroit and manhandled those gentlemen. I mean, I don't really know another way to say it. They manhandled it. TJ, I'm gonna let you go first. You talk to the people. What do you think about that particular matchup?
It was just a perfect storm for Washington. They came out quick. They were able to do whatever they wanted offensively. Defense forced some turnovers that were uncharacteristic of Jared Goff this season. We were all wondering, and I doubted it, but we were all wondering, are the injuries specifically on the decimated defensive side for Detroit, is it going to catch up to them? I thought they'd be able to overpower it, but Jaden Daniels, man, with ice water in his veins, came through, and proved everyone who was thinking like me wrong. They played lights out. Dan Quinn, man, talk about just a turner, instantly turns around the team, and now he has a team that hasn't been in it since the '90s in the NFC Championship game. I mean, that's good. He's trying to not necessarily you can't erase the loss in the Super Bowl, but you can overshadow it with greatness, and that's what he's trying to do right now. In my opinion, he's already done it, because he's put Washington back on the map when they were just abysmal from literal ownership down the bottom for years. I'm sure as an Eagles fan, you're not necessarily happy to hear that part, but hey, at the end of the day, though, they did great. Dan Campbell, he knew that, you could tell by how emotional he was, that basically his coaching staff was going to be picked apart, which they have been, for head coaching vacancies. And, he let all his emotions fly. He was upset, and, you could tell he was thinking on the sideline, especially towards the end of the game. To me, it looked like he was looking on and saying in his own head, man, what could have been without injuries? It's just the truth. I understand next man up, but when you got 7-8 guys on one side of the ball on the injury report, that's really hard to overcome. They got a couple guys back, but not them all, and it showed. But yeah, Jaden Daniels definitely Rookie of the Year, and they're gonna come into Philly, definitely looking to give it to the Eagles.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like the Commanders had a set amount of plays that they did. They just worked really well. Detroit never made the adaptations to those plays. They just kind of let them keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. credit to Washington for figuring out how they could attack Detroit and staying with it unless they made them change. And they didn't. They ran a lot of screen passes and different things that just on the same side they continued to work. It felt like they were running the same 4 or 5 plays, just continually. And no hate, because if you allow it to happen, the other team, if you find something that works and it's not broke, why fix it? That's one thing I'll say a lot of the other teams do. They get in these situations like this, everything's working, and then they find a way to blow it. They didn't do that. So they deserve, I don't even want to do this. They deserve kudos for having a good game plan that worked and adapting to what the Lions were doing. There you go, Commanders fans. You won't hear it after today. But there's that. But I just like, big Jaden Daniels fan. I think he brought a whole new dynamic to the team. I know some people have been talking about it as just the greatest rookie season ever. I don't think it's the greatest ever, unless they go to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. But I do think it's top 5. I think you can look at Cam Newton, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson had really spectacular rookie seasons. Someone tried to make the argument with me, but they had better defensive play. But the same person made the argument with me earlier in the show that it doesn't matter what happens on the other side of the ball because the quarterback doesn't play defense, the defensive players don't play offense. So, I just like to have the same criteria. I don't like the bar to go all over the place depending on what we're talking about. So, best on their own criteria, I have to reject their deposits. But yeah, that's what I think. Excited to see this NFC Beast, we like to call it, championship game. But we will talk about that later. We first have to talk about the other team that made that happen. And then we're going to give some thoughts on these coaching hires that happened. Because every job but one's already full. And I think I know who's taking the other job, unfortunately. All right, so the last of the divisional round games, NFC divisional round game in the Snow Bowl. The Rams versus the Eagles. The Eagles win 28-22. The reason it was a 6-point game is because Jake Elliott missed extra point again. Not happy about that, but things happen. We still won the game. Win the game is important. And factually speaking, this is crazy. I was looking up stats because I've been having a little bit of insomnia here, so I was looking at the stats. And we're undefeated in the playoffs with Jake Elliott when he misses a field goal. An extra point. Crazy, but facts are facts. So there's that. Man, watch this entire game, of course. This is not a good game. Neither team played, and I know you had snow and whatnot, but even with the snow, this was not a good game. Like, this is not a game where you looked at it and said, man, these teams came out and played their best and played hard. They just didn't get the job done. You did not come out and say that if you watched this game. You did not. This was overall just sloppy, a lot of missed opportunities both ways. But in true Philadelphia Eagles fashion, nothing to brag home about, nothing to write home about, nothing to be too excited about, but they did win. And we take wins over here, but at the same time, you want to, as you get deeper in the season, you want to be clicking. I can't say that we aren't clicking, but I can't say that we are either. My biggest concern, even in this game, play calling. Jalen hurts his leg. We put him in and then have him sit in the pocket long enough to where he gets a safety. A mobile quarterback that just hurt his leg and had to put a sleeve on to continue to play. That's what you call it. Those are the type of things that just frustrate me. I'm fine with losing. I'm fine with winning. I'm fine with the ugly win here and there. But just those bad decisions can hurt you at the wrong times. We also did a bootleg when we were trying to run out the clock with Jalen Hurts with the hurt leg. And needless to say, failed miserably. That's why the Rams had an opportunity to get down late in the game and at least get in position to score. a touchdown. They weren't able to finish, which is why we won. Because all they would need to score and do an extra point, they would have won because Jake Elliott missed the extra point. But enough was done to win the game. You can't complain too much, but you can point out the flaws and the things that need to be better so that you can continue to win. And that's where I'm at with the Eagles right now. What's your thoughts, TJ?
For me, it was definitely neither team played the perfect game or even close to it. But I give more so to the Rams, obviously, because of where they play in a dome in LA. But the snow definitely had a factor a little bit. I think you would have liked to see the Eagles really pull away and cement their win at the end. But hey, a win's a win. You guys are moving on. They're not. Me personally, it was snowing in my area, so I went out to shovel snow when the Eagles went up by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I come back in just in time to see the Rams down at your 30-yard line. I couldn't believe it. I was like, yo, what happened? It's a 6-point game. I was like, yo, what happened? But the real question coming out is really a lot of questions for the Rams because Matt Stafford, there's a big question. Is he going to retire? Is he going to move on? Sean McVay reportedly was breaking down in tears in the locker room after the game, I think because he really felt like this team could go the distance. But for the Eagles, hey man, you went out, you got Saquon, and man oh man, did it once again pay off in this game for them. They're going to be a hard out. That's all I can say. It's going to be an epic showdown with Washington and Philadelphia today.
Definitely. So as you guys can see, me and TJ are rolling solo today. All good. We don't have to be here for a long time. Just a good time. So we'll move on to our coaching carousel here. So we've had some coaching changes happen here. Got them pulled up. Just got to hit the right. Here we go. Okay. So head coaching moves here because we're not going to really worry about the coordinators. Except for Robert Saleh going back to the San Francisco 49ers to be their DC again. That's the only one I'm going to talk about. And the only reason I'm going to talk about that is he was in the quote unquote in the hunt for the Jacksonville job. I kind of want to start with Jacksonville because it kind of felt like we were told that Robert Saleh was the front runner there. They did 2 interviews with people of color to certify the Rooney Rule. And then all of a sudden, Liam Cohen, who had already verbally agreed to a contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to continue to be their OC for more money, just decided that he was going to disappear for a day and then call his job and say, hey, he got some personal stuff going on. And then the next day call and say, hey, I'm taking an interview with Jacksonville. And then Tampa Bay finds out he's already in the facility at the time he makes the call. Because somebody in Jacksonville snitched on him. And he ends up taking that job as the head coach. So it kind of feels like Jacksonville put this off until they had what they needed to satisfy the Rooney Rule, which is to me a big joke right now because if you're not taking the candidate that you're interviewing seriously, then you're not really doing anything to help by having the Rooney Rule. I know that so I thought of the best way to fix this, TJ, and hear me out. So we give a draft pick to a team if their person of color gets hired by another team. Why not give the team that's hiring that head coach a compensatory, like a 3rd-round compensatory pick for hiring a coach of color? And they don't get it until the 2nd year. So, meaning if you do one of these things like they did up in New England, you still don't get the compensatory pick. You have to hire that person of color and keep them for at least 2 seasons. And then after the 2nd season, you get the compensatory 3rd-round pick. I think that's a way to motivate some owners and some organizations to say, okay, well, let's actually give the guys a real chance besides just, pomp and circumstance for them being hired as coaches of color. So, a lot there. I packed in a lot. No Diddy. But any thoughts, TJ?
Uh, man, as soon as I heard that break news, man, it was I was just like, man, that's bad business. you know, uh, forget about burning a bridge, man. He blew that bridge up, and you know, he better hope it works out in Jacksonville because there's no way in the world that Tampa's ever going to take him back. And honestly, in the future, there will be other teams that may shy away from him, even if they are coordinator needy and he's on the market because they're well. Look what he did to Tampa. It's just not good business. Even if you were having second thoughts, even after everything was done, if he just owned it right away and was like, you know what, I'm still thinking about that Jacksonville job, then a lot of respect would have been saved between him and Tampa Bay specifically. Jacksonville, I mean, they made the move. They got the guy they clearly wanted, but at the same time, now other teams are looking at them saying, "Hey, be careful if you make a deal with Jacksonville because they like to backdoor you a little bit." So, I think it just came out really messy looking for everyone involved on the Jacksonville side, and well, now Tampa's is looking for a new coordinator, and at least they got out of paying the highest ever paid coordinator, though. That you know that was a good deal to get out of, I guess, if it ended up happening, but.
Yeah. So, any thoughts on my suggestion on compensation for teams hiring head coaches of the color?
Personally, I have my own idea for head coaches, and it's just one and dones in general. I think owners or teams should be penalized for it. Uh, I don't know if it should be an unwritten rule or an actual in the rule book, but I think owners, if you are 100% committed to any head coach, period, you should have them for a minimum of 2 years. The first year, they're essentially getting acclimated, especially if they're rookie head coaches, period. I feel like they should get penalized. If you do a one and done, you have to pay a fine or you lose, say, a fourth or fifth round pick, something like that, just because it's just too impatient and it's making the position of head coach seem almost a little novelty-ish just because of how often one and dones are happening within the last decade now. In terms of the Rooney Rule, I agree with you. It should be taken 100% serious. If you're not going, if it is literally a pity interview, so you can get this out of the way, so you can hire the person you really want, that's not making any difference. That's just wasting everybody's time. And for all you know, the coach of color that you are interviewing, it's a pity interview, but they could literally be like living, dreaming, sleeping this, and then you're just going to wreck them like nothing because, well, we have to. It should be done with purpose, not just because the rule's out there, and a lot more coordinators should be considered seriously for head coaching jobs instead of just the constant retread over and over again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, a couple of comments here. So, sports PSP says Chiefs versus Eagles rematch. Absolutely. Shay Sports says like, comment, and subscribe. Chicken Nugget King says hello, guys. What's going on, Chicken Nugget King? I mean, after that whole wild experience there, the most shocking one to me was Las Vegas Raiders Pete Carroll. I saw this, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, we got a 73-year-old guy getting hired as the head coach. Perfect segue by you in the retreads. So he's like a super retread, right? This guy has been all over the world as far as coaching, right? College, professional. 73, and you bring him in instead of giving a guy who may be a coordinator or a guy who's maybe had one job and needed to kind of get that one job out of the way to get the second opportunity. It's hard to get new blood, get more ingenuity into some of these franchises because they won't really give young guys the go. It's okay to give them a year, right? It's okay to give them, a year and a half or whatever in the case of the Raiders. But you really got to commit and mold a team around a coach's image. And that's something that I haven't seen the Raiders do lately. I think that's one of the reasons why they're not having success. Pete Carroll should be a stabilizing factor for this team. But is he going to make this team anything better than middle of the road, worst draft picks trying to build a team and retool it? I mean, that's pretty much all I can say about him. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, for the Raiders, I like the way that they went from one extreme to another. First, they give the rookie, head coaching offer, get rid of him real fast. Now they go with someone who has a lot of both college and pro experience and has won championships at both levels as well. So I think they're in pretty good hands right now with Pete Carroll. They're also building, staff around him to make it seem like he's going to succeed. The only question I have is long term, what is that for them? Because he's essentially like a bridge head coach because he's already in his 70s. So he's probably only going to be around for a max of maybe 3 to 4 years, 3 to 5 years, even if things are going well. Age catches up to everybody. So I'm really interested to see if maybe they kind of pool bringing in an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator, maybe not necessarily this year, but next year, the following year, to kind of learn under his wing to transition someone in the system already to be his replacement. So that'll be something interesting to watch. But I think the Raiders are going to be in good hands and a lot more competitive this upcoming season specifically.
Yeah, I definitely feel it, man. I definitely feel it. So we'll move on, of course. A couple more to go over. We knew about this one already, but just, throw it in the pile. Mike Vrabel is the head coach, of course, of the New England Patriots. I think it's the guy they wanted all along. I think that they made the commitment. So since they made the commitment to the other gentleman, they decided to keep him for a year, just to cover themselves. And now that that's over, they're doing what they really want to do all along, and that's hiring Mike Vrabel. I don't think they believed he was going to become available, and he became available at a time when they were kind of like, "Oh, he's available. We better get him." I mean, it happens all the time in the NFL. I get it. Vrabel, I felt like shouldn't have been let go at Tennessee. That was a whole cluster cluck, as I like to say. But it is what it is. It's done. We're going to see. They also brought back Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. Apparently, if he's anywhere besides there, he's not good. So maybe since he's there, he'll be okay. We'll see. We'll see how things go. But I don't think it's a bad hire for them. I just don't like the way they did, their former coach when bringing him in. That's my only issue. Your thoughts, TJ?
I like Mike Vrabel, especially as a head coach. So for me, it was a great signing by them. I do feel like Mayo definitely got shafted a little bit there in that whole situation. Robert Kraft pretty much made it clear that the only reason he was ever the head coach to begin with is to honor, a promise that he made. Other than that, it's unfortunate for him. Hopefully he gets another, gig, or another shot down the line as a head coach because he really didn't get a fair shake this time around. But Mike Vrabel, I still don't really understand why Tennessee let him go. So the fact that he sat last year now makes more sense because he was apparently the incumbent to come to New England. So he basically got a vacay, and now he's going to come in and he's going to coach for the team that he played and won championships with. I think you're going to see probably a pretty similar and successful turnaround to the Patriots like when he first got the job with Tennessee. I think they're going to be a lot more disciplined. They're going to find the proper positions that they are lacking in, specifically offensive line, hopefully. And, I think they're going to be a big improvement. Maybe not a playoff team next year, but they're definitely going to be closer to the 500 mark, if not, maybe a game over.
Yeah, definitely see improvement coming from them based on this hire. So, we talked a few minutes ago about a certain team getting rated. And start with Chicago. So Chicago, I guess the minute after the game was over, was like, "Hey, you ready, Ben?" And the next day, they announced him as the head coach of their team now. So offensive coordinator, going from Detroit, and not only gone, but going to a division rival. To me, for Ben Johnson, the best job available, and the quarterback wanted him there. So I think it was a great move. I mean, it was a great way to set up that team for future success. I do believe Ben Johnson and then Antoine Randall coming over as well is going to be good for the wide receiver room and the offense. I also believe that Caleb Williams will grow and develop and be better than what we saw this year with the decision-making turnovers. If you take some of those other stats out, he didn't have a bad rookie year, but you can't just, take certain things out and leave certain things in. But it's a tricky job because Chicago's shown so far, at least, that they'll give you some time. Eberflus got way more time than he should have got there, but we'll see how it actually plays out on the field and how many years he gets to really turn that team around, because it's definitely going to take some time. Defensive coordinator is going to be a huge decision for him, and we'll see what he officially does for that. But I like the move of Ben Johnson in Chicago, young, innovative, with a new quarterback, a team that is showing they're willing to spend money and try to get guys to fix their issues. Your thoughts, sir?
Man, that division just got even more hateful with each other after that move. And not only him, but he's also bringing other guys from Detroit over with him too. So I mean, that rivalry just got amped up big time. I think Caleb Williams is going to be in great hands. I mean, you saw what he did with Jared Goff, and I think he's going to be able to do the same thing. Caleb Williams did not have a bad year last year, or I mean this year rather, but everyone wanted to make it seem like he was a borderline bust when really, again, he did good. It was just the team as a whole, just there's nothing around him really. There's pieces, but they're definitely nowhere near complete. I think the hiring of Johnson, that's going to really help them move along. I look to see what they are targeting in the draft by their picks. Are they going to go more offensive friendly and help Caleb Williams, or are they going to go more defensive and try and get maybe some offensive weapons in the free agent pool? Who knows? But either way, they're again, they should be a team to be reckoned with. I mean, this whole year of the Eberflus debacle, and realistically, probably about 3/4 of the way through the season, 2/3, they still had an outside shot of making the playoffs. So I think now you bring in a very competent, very capable head coach and staff who, coming from Detroit now, have a history of being successful. I think you're going to see a quick turnaround in Chicago as well.
Yeah, I think you give him some time, and it will be what it needs to be. It just needs a little bit of time there. So definitely agree that was a good decision. Another, I think, foregone conclusion, you just had to wait for things to line up for it to happen, was Aaron Glenn to the New York Jets. Former player. We know there was mutual interest, but it felt like he was saying, I'm going to wait until the Jets are done before I really dive into it. He waited a few more days than Ben Campbell before he got announced, but still both happened this past week. Therefore, concluding the exodus. And, of course, he'll take some coaches with him, I'm sure, from the staff in Detroit. But both coordinators gone, and I can tell you that losing both of your coordinators, and if you're not able to replace them with real quality guys, it sets you back. when you have a young quarterback or a quarterback that's having a quote unquote renaissance in his career, that sort of thing, and the offensive coordinator changes and that staff kind of moves around and is a bit different, it can hinder their development. But on the Jet side, Aaron Glenn gets the opportunity. And it's good to get the opportunity. Now it's what do you do with your staff, your coordinators, your staff, and everything? Who's coming with you for Detroit? What are you going? How are you going to build that staff? Are there guys that the Jets want you to keep? Hopefully none on the defensive side because their defense struggled after they lost the coach. But so I think Saleh did a fair job with what he was given. Glenn stepping into the situation, but it's kind of like I need the opportunity, so it's there. I got to take it. So it's a double-edged sword or a catch-22, so to speak, for Aaron Glenn. But he gets the opportunity, and maybe he'll only have 1 year of Aaron left, the Mushroom Man, or maybe the Mushroom Man will say I'm done here and I'm going to retire. We'll see what happens. All yours, TJ.
I mean, all I can really say is good luck to him because that's not a great situation to be in right now. If he was not a former player, I highly doubt he would have gone there, in my opinion. But I respect it. He's going back to the place he once played at, trying to help turn them around. And like you already said, a lot of questions. A lot of questions. Is Aaron Rodgers coming back? Is he going to try and force his way back, or is he going to leave, retire, whatever? Glenn's got a tall task ahead of him. He better, again, build a good staff because he's going to need all the support he can get. And, with Woody Johnson, maybe he should take a page out of some other owners' handbooks and start to take a step back maybe with this new head coach, see if maybe that approach works because nothing else he's tried in the last decade and a half has.
Fair enough. There's one job left, but before we get to that, we got a comment from Shady Sports Network. It says it's ironic the Raiders chose to hire a veteran HC who was let go after 1 year in his first coaching job, only to go on and find success everywhere else he's been. Mark Davis doesn't even see the irony of what you're speaking of, Mr. Shady Sports, but you are correct, Sam. You are completely correct. And that makes it even more funnier to me. All right. So the New Orleans Saints are still looking for a head coach. One of the big reports, and I know that he's interviewed once and he's planning on interviewing a second time, the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, Kellen Moore, is a big candidate for that position. So I know that's one. And then I did want to save this one for the end. The Dallas Cowboys hired Brian Schottenheimer. I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with this. Brian Schottenheimer could be a Rain Man, idiot savant of coaching as a head coach. But nothing he's done as an OC up until this point has made anyone else have any interest in Brian Schottenheimer. But Dallas hires him as their head coach. I have never seen Dallas fans more enraged on social media and some of the ones I know about a hire for head coach. I think this was a lazy, sloppy, poor hire. Again, they can know something we don't, but I don't believe that's the case. I think it just made a bad decision and it's going to burn them for a long, long, long time. And you add it on the other decisions they made, Dallas is all in again. Your thoughts, TJ?
Well, it was very lackluster, in my opinion. You had all these exciting stories. Dion, maybe Mike McCarthy's pulling, is going to stay in the end. They're having this conversation. And then just for the, the climactic ending to be, oh, yeah, we're just going to promote our OC, basically. I was kind of surprised by it. I thought they would, honestly, I thought, Dion, I know he said in the past, but that just seemed like a match made in heaven. One guy who likes to be up on the podium and America's team. It was like a match made in heaven. But Schottenheimer's going to have a lot to prove because, like you said, he hasn't really proved anything as an OC there. So it was kind of a shock. I'm thinking Jerry just took the easy way out, and if this doesn't work out in 2 years or 3 years down the road, he'll just leave, and then he'll actually put some effort into it because it feels like for whatever reason Jerry Jones was like backed into a corner or starting to stress over everybody else already getting a head coach because this just did not seem like the direction that he wanted to go. It seems more like a settling. So we'll see how they do, but unlike some of the other coaching hires, I don't see the Cowboys really skyrocketing from this one.
Yeah, and Kellen Moore, if he leaves, he leaves. But how about you wait until we're officially eliminated or win the Super Bowl before we start this mess, Mr. Moore? And that could be why the Saints haven't made that decision yet because they're, he's definitely in the running, and maybe coaches from the other three teams that are here are also in the running. Maybe they're looking at the Commanders' OC, Cliff Kingsbury. That's been a guy people have been talking about. Maybe looking at him. So maybe some guys are looking at it, just haven't had that happen as of yet. We'll see how things pan out with that last job. The Saints, if they do get somebody in before the week after the Super Bowl, and we're doing a show, well, probably the week of the Super Bowl. We don't need to do it after the Super Bowl, so it's not really a pregame report at that point. But if they get a coach before then we'll definitely talk about it here on Pregame Report, presented to you by Shady Sports Network and Sports Wave Network. All right, so we have concluded talking about that. So the only thing we've got left is 2 previews. TJ, we're moving good on time, man. We're moving good on time. So today, 3 p.m. I want to bring up the old in the background, but we might get a copyright if I do that. So, Washington Commanders travel to the Philadelphia Eagles. This is an NFC East, or as we say it on the Beast, the NFC Beast championship game. Commanders, Lincoln Financial Field for the second time this year. They're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. We know who I have. That's not anything we need to try to figure out. I think you guys should be clear on who I have. But the reasons why is what I want to get into. But before I do that, I'm going to let TJ go because you know how it is when it's your team. Sometimes you kind of go over every single thing. You don't leave something else. So we're going to do that. But before we do that real quick, a couple of comments here. Said in the building in the chat today, says, Pete followed Jim Harbaugh everywhere. Laugh out loud. I agree. I did see that meme. I liked it. I wish they would have had more of a stalker vibe for Harbaugh's side. But it works. Sid also says, Jerry said he ain't giving no power to a coach. Laugh out loud. We definitely accomplished that. TJ, the floor is yours, sir.
I see this game really going down to the fourth quarter. It might even be, a second to last or last drive of the game decides it. I just can't pick against the Eagles because they're at their home, and as great as Jaden Daniels has been, it's just you cannot you just can't disrespect the Eagles offense like that. They're just they have wide receivers, they have Jalen Hurts at quarterback, they have Saquon Barkley now. There's just a little too much, I think, for Washington to handle. If this was maybe next year or 3 years in and they had, and they had been playing better, they had been good for a few seasons now, I could see them pulling this victory out. But I just think you're going up against a seasoned Eagles team that, a few years removed from a Super Bowl appearance, and they want to get back. So I see this being a really good game. It's probably going to, 27-24, 31-27, something like that. But I just see the Eagles pulling this one out in the end.
Fair enough. So y'all, bear with me. It's gonna be a little lengthy, but it's gonna be some good stuff. So bear with me. I'm gonna start with the Washington Commanders. Well, of course, I don't think it's gonna win the game, but Washington is going to be a team that's going to be difficult for the Eagles. This is the third time seeing us, our third time seeing them as well. So, in those situations, those teams kind of have 2 games of film to go through, chop up, and see tendencies, things that teams like to do. They're missing Deron Payne. We're missing a Kobe Dean and, of course, Brandon Graham. Cam Jurgens is going to be a game time decision. His back has been his issue. He hasn't really practiced a lot this week. Done some of the walkthroughs, but no real practice. If he can go, he's going to give it a go. If not, then, obviously he won't be out there. But having him and not having him, I think, would be a big difference. Even if he's at 75%, I think 75-80% of Cam Jurgens is better than anyone else that we would put at center for the Philadelphia Eagles, because Jason Kelsey's not an option, right? Unless he's going to come out of retirement and play. So there's that. I think the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, if he can get off and do what he did in the second game against us, they scored a lot in the second half, and they only had the ball like 10 minutes. And I'm being generous when I give them 10 minutes. But they would still manage to get a lot of touchdowns and win the game because of that. So I think having Hurts in this game is pivotal because it makes things different. You have to always look at him, and by the way, he's going to be able to run. Now, he may not be run as much as he has in the past, and he may not have the same quickness, but he's going to be able to run. And I do foresee him running the ball some, because that RPO runs a lot better when you have Jalen Hurts in there, because he is a threat with his legs as well. So I think that's going to work. I think that we're going to see a big day finally from A.J. Brown in the passing game. And a big day could be 4 or 5 catches for 60, 70 yards and a touchdown. But I think we'll see A.J. Brown have a good day. I think we'll see Devontae Smith make some catches. These are 2 guys who historically over their careers with the Eagles have had good games, a lot of good games against the Commanders. The question is, can we put up enough touchdowns so that when we get an early lead, we're not falling behind or letting them catch up because we're just putting up 3 field goals? So what happened the last game, of course, Kenny Pickett was a quarterback for most of that game. We were only getting field goals. We were having good long drives, but they were all ending in field goals. We need to get some of those in the end zone, and we win that game. So if things hold true to what they have the first 2 games, and we start off early, strong, as we did the second time we played them, I think the Commanders are going to be in trouble. They're going to be forced to kind of abandon the run, except for Daniels, and throw the ball a lot, and that's not the strength of attacking the Eagles defense, throw into our secondary. You got Cooper DeJean, you have Quinyon Mitchell, who is back, and then you have sometimes big plays, sometimes no play Slate. He's been big play so far in the playoffs, so I think he'll continue to do that. When you look at the reverse of that, the Commanders' defense has been very susceptible to the run. The run is what the Eagles want to do, right? The Eagles' game plan, healthy Hurts, injured Hurts, no Hurts. Run the ball. I would like to see us take it to the extent of getting, Gainwell about 10 to 15 carries this game on top of 20 to 25 for Saquon. I just want to run the ball down the throat, control the clock, get them less opportunities, and make it a desperation game at the end. For Commanders defense, they've actually been better than I would anticipate throughout the playoffs, which is why they're where they're at. But this is a team that knows what they like to do, where they can get them, and I think this is going to be an opportunity to get them. I still think the game's fairly close. I don't see a blowout just because we have not blown out anybody of any statue throughout this regular season and playoff for the most part. So I think you'll still get a close game. I'm going to go 31-24 for my final score. A decent win, but not a resounding win, but a win is a win, and I think that's more along the lines of what our coaching staff believes. Coaching. Defense, I give it to us. Everything else, I give it to the Commanders. I don't know what's going on with the combination of Sirianni and Moore, but it doesn't look good a lot of the times. It does sometimes, but not a lot of the times. Hurts is regressed throughout the games. He starts off playing better than he does midway and the end of the game. I don't know if maybe that's just part of him getting back together, or if that's just what we get. I don't know. We'll find more out about that today. I will when the rest of everybody else finds out. The Eagles should win this game. The Eagles should win this game pretty solidly, not on the scoreboard, but on all of the measurables. Time of possession, turnover battle, all those things. Win all those things, you're going to win this game against the Commanders, and we're going to hunt. In 2 weeks, we're going to hunt again. All that's left to do is play it on the field. I could also go into the topic of their DC saying if Hurts runs like a running back, we're going to hit him like a running back. Only thing I'll say to that is I know Commanders fans have been telling me he says that all the time, and he said that about Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's not running the ball like Jalen Hurts or whatever, but I'll say this. You have a running quarterback yourself, sir. So when you're running around telling people that you're going to hit that quarterback like he's a running back if he runs the ball, be sure that Vic Fangio is telling his defense, hit him like a running back when he runs the ball, since he's going to hit Jalen like that. So you're not the wisest decision, seeing that he's already had a rib injury this year. But that's what happens when guys start talking. Anything else you'd like to add to the Eagles-Commanders game, TJ?
This is for my mom. Fly, Eagles, fly.
We love TJ's mom in Eagles Nation. So y'all know. All right, so we'll move on to Bills Chiefs. I'll make mine quick on this one, and then it's all you, TJ. The Bills should win the game. The Chiefs are going to get help from the last part of the name, as they always do. I'm going to pick them, but I so hope I'm wrong. I so hope that somehow Buffalo finds a way to win this game. The rest of the league, I don't know if I'm sure you guys have probably seen the meme where they basically take the scene from Avengers Endgame where everybody comes through and they have everybody be all the different teams and everybody versus the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are basically Mahomes and some of the more prominent players are the bad guys. I definitely agree with that. I think the whole world wants the Chiefs to not even get to that third Super Bowl in a row. But we'll talk about this later, but I do think there'll be a wrinkle if the matchup I think happens is going to happen. But we will see what happens before we go any further. But I am picking the Chiefs. I'll say 21-17. But if I'm wrong, I will not be happier in all of existence. In my time, I can remember picking anything to be wrong. Floor is yours, TJ.
Man, I really hope you're wrong. I'm going to go with the Bills. I think that they proved earlier in the year in the regular season matchup that they could. There was, again, Chiefs football. It's true. Couple questionable calls in that game too, but the Bills were able to overcome it. So that's what they have to do. They have to, Cool's been saying all season long, you have to get to a point where a couple penalties won't be able to bring them back. A couple big plays by them won't be able to bring them back. You basically have to bury them. And I think the Bills can do it. Their defense has been really good as of late, really all season, but especially as of late. They kind of gave up a little bit of a near comeback against the Ravens, but for the most part, they were just pressuring Lamar Jackson and making it hell for the offense to move down the field. To me, the Chiefs, if they channel their inner offense that they haven't really had all season long, they could win this game in a shootout, but I don't see them. I don't see them being that team that can score over 30 points against the Bills again. I think it's going to be similar to the last game. It's going to be on the higher scoring side of things, but the Bills are probably going to win by I'll say somewhere around like 11-14, because again, they're going to want that late 2-score advantage. That way nothing crazy can happen. So I see them winning like 35-24, 38-24, something like that, similar to the final score in the last game.
I would be elated, excited, happy, everything if you're right, sir. I want you to be right. My heart is with you, but my head says Kansas City. Cool McCain, I ask that the football gods spit on your AFC Championship pick and make you wrong, Bear. I'll be happy. So, anything else you want to say before we get out of here, TJ? We only at about an hour, but hey, we went through everything. You know what I'm saying?
Bills Eagles Super Bowl. That's what my pick will be. Let's go. That's what I want to see, the matchup.
I have no problems whatsoever with TJ's pick. I will go with TJ's pick for the Super Bowl, even though I picked the Chiefs to win, because I don't want the Chiefs freeze even in Super Bowl. Have a bad feeling they will be, but that's that. Hey, everybody just watched. Everybody checks out the replay. We greatly appreciate you. We're going to talk and decide if we will have a show next week. I'm going to probably say we won't, just because we have that in-between week. So you won't see us next week. Let's just go ahead and call it. You won't see us next week, but we will be back with your pregame report prior to the last game and 2 Sundays. So next Sunday, take a break, kick your feet up, watch some Unrivaled, watch some NBA, watch some college basketball, anime, scary movies, whatever you want to watch. But in 2 weeks, 11 a.m., be back here. It'll be a very entertaining show, no matter which way it goes. So, good people, for TJ, this is your boy Cool McCain. Make sure you're subscribing Shady Sports Network YouTube, Sports Wave Network on YouTube. Make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing if you are coming in and watching the show, if you're checking out the replay. And with that being said, we are out. We will return again, not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after that. Super Bowl preview, 11 a.m. Let's go.
Are you ready?